So looking at bridge for science, what are some of the academic function words that looks like you have some circled?
So I have analyze, and then I have interpret, and then in the oral language.
Yeah, let's look at oral language because that's kind of a little vague.
In oral language, I have like paraphrasing.
Look at that. Evaluating, inferring, paraphrasing.
In collaborative.
So I'm thinking for evaluating, like if they're coming up with their own ideas for a science experiment, like we could have evaluative language on them evaluating each other's. So when we look at the academic function toolkit, there's the language of inquiry and seeking information, and then there's also, let's see here, sequencing, classifying, analysis, justification, and persuasion. So I'm wondering if they come up with an idea, if we can then use some of these language, these sentence starters to evaluate their other people's ideas respectfully. Does that make sense?
So two tasks. One is that they're going to come up with an experiment to explain what happens to a rock as it tumbles. And then the second task would be to evaluate the other person.
Well, no, I think they could do that right within. So the thing I like about the academic toolkit is it's every, so the different functions, it's all wording and resources for that function. But when we think about an actual conversation, you're not just going to inquire and seek the whole time, because then it's not a conversation.
Right.
You can't just inquire, you inquire and I inquire.
Right.
So an actual conversation, like these are great for teaching the language of writing, if that's your genre, especially like persuasion. An actual conversation, you go through all these things. You may inquire, and then you may try to persuade somebody, and then you may seek to understand. So one of a really cool thing that I've seen, it's called conversation ladders. And similar to, a lot of these come right from this toolkit. So if you have provide an example, here are the sentence starters. I would add that, or to piggyback off that. That makes me think of, that reminds me of, so that you have all the different functions. Write an example, state the importance, offer a different perspective, application, challenge the idea. That gets right into the oral language one. So it's a good point, and I think the evidence shows that. So what if we had these, so there's 6 different functions. So what if we copied these on 2 different colors of paper, and then we model this first, where they have to start their sentence. So one person's going to come up with an idea for an experiment. And then the other person, they just go back and forth, and they have or maybe it's 3 people, it could be 2 or 3. They have a conversation using these sentence starters.
Okay.
But I think we'd need to model it first.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So what would be, like, could you come up with an experiment that's something that similar to what they would say, but doesn't take away like the good example?
I was thinking of something like far-fetched, you know,
good.
like, so what happens to a rock as it tumbles downhill? Like I was thinking that we, in order to figure out what happens, is first we would use a slingshot, get like a huge slingshot, have them actually have one person slingshot another person down at the bottom to take notes on what happens after the slingshot.
So let's practice.
Okay.
So that's your idea that you're sharing. We'd maybe come up with a sentence frame for that. And then what if I said, it's a good point, and I think the evidence shows that might be one way to see what happens to a rock as it tumbles down. However, how would we ensure that you could accurately get the rock up to the top of the mountain? And then you would use one of your frames, and you would respond back to me.
Let's see.
Okay, so I think this will work. So if we do that, I don't want to like script it too much, because then I want to show them that you actually have to like stop and think before you it's okay to take a little time and read and if they don't have this whole page, if they just have 2 or 3 to look at, I think that's going to go much better.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think with your kids it would make sense to have them have these ahead of time and watch us as we're doing it? Or do you think we should just model the whole thing and not let them see?
I think it might be a good idea to have them have it ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
and then have them turn it over so that we can have them focused really on us.
And then maybe go back and look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you notice that we did as we were speaking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because
This is going to be fun. I feel like they're going to get, much more clarity in what they actually say.
because they do really well with pulling out noticings and in writing. So I think
Okay.
that
So what did they say though? Like what, I'm trying to figure out the frame.
the frame. Okay. So they said they started off with, because we didn't do any language stuff, they started off with an experiment that I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what could we say that would get them that higher, richer academic? So something like, do we want them to refer back to the film?
That would I'd love, because we front loaded all this information with them.
Yeah.
So based on what we discussed or what we learned,
Maybe based on what the author said, or what would it be? Not the author,
the video.
yeah, based on the information from the video. And then then it goes into one experiment that might work could be.
Yeah, some might argue against this because kind of dangerous to hit rocks together, so you could hurt yourself or hurt someone else.
Yeah, that's important because this is important because not only that, but some rocks have flint in it, and if you beat them together multiple times, it'll start a fire.
I have the same opinion as you, that it would start a fire because
You learned in the video about the rock. One experiment that might work is maybe we get a bucket and we put the rock in it. I don't know why I'm using my hands. And then you shake it, and then we can do a couple shakes and see what happens to the rock, and then we can just keep doing that until then it would be the same as a rock would fall down because of the tongues. What do you think?
To piggyback off of that idea, I was thinking to put a rock in a bucket, kind of like yours, but pour water over it, just like you said in the video, how it wedges, and maybe put it in the freezer or fridge or something, or leave it outside.
On